We are honored to have with us today Gregg Hunter. He's the president of Christian Camp and Conference Association. And hi, Gregg, where were you Skyping you in from? You in Colorado?
I am in Colorado Springs, Perry.
Well, nice to have you with us today. And wow, I was just looking at the list of camps that you have in Oregon. Wow, you got a ton of them going on. First of all, give us an update. Tell us about your organization.
Well, our mission is to maximize ministry for our member camps and conference centers. So what we do, Perry, is that we try to help them get better at what they do in ministry in areas where they want to improve. We want to provide that for them. So we've got about 830 member camps across the country, and we hold training events. We have a national conference that's kind of our power event of the year where they come and get recharged and ready to go back for another year of ministry. We produce a magazine that's like a trade journal for Christian camping people that they can get ideas for ministry improvement. We're preparing online training for them and other events like that, including regional meetings, so that people in ministry, again, can be ministered to and can get even better at what they do.
Well, you know, the whole camp experience, I don't think there isn't a young person out there that can't point back to a camp where it was monumental in their life. And I want to commend you for keeping that going, because there's something that happens at a camp that doesn't happen anywhere else.
You know, you're so right. We call that the power of camp, and we have a national marketing campaign going on right now that helps to communicate that. We have heard statistics that we can't quite back up yet, but we've heard, perhaps, it may surprise you, and a lot of Christians especially, that there is a study we've heard of that said that 80% of parents in the U.S. today did not have a camp experience in their youth. And so because of that, we feel like in order to convince moms, dads, even youth leaders to consider camp as a viable option for their children for a summer or for a retreat is a bit of an uphill climb. So as an association, we've introduced this campaign called The Power of Camp, because we want to communicate just how life-changing an experience at camp can be.
Now, is it for churches? Can people who can't afford go? I mean, how does all this work?
Well, the campaign is really, we want to saturate the country, starting with Christians, because we believe that they are more likely to see the value in the spiritual growth that their kids can attain while going to camp. So we're going out to a lot of Christian media across the country right now. But we also would be happy. I mean, frankly, I'd love to be on Good Morning America telling the story of the power of camp. And
you are right now. I just want you to know, you're on the Dove. That's just as big.
It's just as important to me. I'm grateful to be here.
No, excuse me. Go ahead.
Well, and so we talk about, you asked the question about helping kids who can't afford to go to camp. We have another initiative that we call Corners of the Field. And we get that from the book of Leviticus, where the command was issued to farmers, and they were told, when you harvest your field, don't go all the way to the corners or the edges of the field, but leave that for the poor and the alien to come and be fed. And we know that if God cares about the physical bodies, we certainly know that he also cares about the heart and the eternal person that needs to come and be fed spiritually. And so we've created this initiative to raise funds for our members to then pay for kids who otherwise may not be able to afford to go to camp.
How does that work?
Well, what we do is we collect funds here. One way that people, if your listeners want to participate, they can go to the website, thepowerofcamp.com.
Okay.
And there are a couple of buttons. One is Find a Camp, and the other one is Send a Kid to Camp. And so if people want to support sending children to camp who otherwise couldn't afford to go, they can make a contribution there, and we will then collect the funds. Our member camps apply for the funds here, and then we distribute the funds for those kids. I'll just tell you this, Perry, I'm passionate about this for another reason, and that is when I was 17 years old, I was an unchurched kid, a pretty rebellious and angry kid who felt unloved and unlovable. And I was invited by a youth leader to go to camp. And I told him I can't possibly afford to go. I have to work, and my parents aren't going to send me to a camp. He said, what if I could get you paid for? And I said, then I'm in. And he said, you have to work for it. So we pulled some weeds in Mrs. Herman's garden, and Mrs. Herman graciously paid me to go to camp. Now, I have to confess, I went to camp to meet girls and met Jesus instead, and I think I got the better end of the deal.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, listen, I'm looking at your list of Oregon camps. It's amazing how many you got out there.
Well, yeah, there are about, by my count, there are about 21 camps. There are some great Christian camps who are not members yet of our association, but there are 21 camps, people that we love that are doing in your state.
All right. So the impact, you have all kinds of things, and the impact of non-Christian kids going to these camps is substantial, and your own story verifies that.
Well, that's true, and there's a term that we use in Christian camping. It's called temporary community, and we find that it is the most powerful experience for a child to get out of their day-to-day environment, out of the pressure, whether it's from peers or parents, or even pressures they put on themselves to be somebody. And so it's a constant noise, a constant force in their lives. And so when they get away from that and they get into a temporary community, all of a sudden they don't have to pretend to be anything. Mm-hmm. They don't have to try so hard to be somebody that they really don't want to be. They actually then, like I did, can think about my future, and particularly in light of this God I hear about who loves me and wants a relationship with me. And he paid the price through his son for me to get into that relationship with him. I found it an undeniable experience and invitation that I couldn't turn down. When God's love was expressed to me that way in a camp environment, I finally could understand what it meant. And so, again, that temporary community is so valuable and so powerful. Some of our members who do just what we call outreach camping, that is, not to church kids or church groups that come in, and there's some who do exclusively that they say between 33 and 40% of the kids who come to camp make a first-time decision to follow Christ. Now, Perry, where else do we find that kind of number? Where else do we find that kind of effectiveness? Churches and youth leaders do a fantastic job in their local community, but it's hard for them to reach out to the unchurched kids and get those kinds of results. Even up in where you are in the Northwest, in a Washington camp told me last year that over the summer, they ask on the last night of camp for kids to raise their hand if they've made a first-time commitment to Christ or a recommitment to him. And 6 out of 10 kids raised their hands.
Wow.
Now, again, I would say camping has an undeniable power in drawing people to God that I'm just so ecstatic to be able to support it, to say I'm a product, I'm a camp kid.
Yeah.
And I'd encourage your listeners and viewers to consider sending a kid to camp.
Well, Greg, there's one thing today that's really alarming to me, and that is as convenient as this digital world is, it's also trapping kids. I am amazed how many young people are addicted to some kind of an electronic device, and what that is doing to families, what it's doing to attention span. I'm an old 4-H guy, so I believe in agriculture. I want to see kids on the farm, but something to get them away from all of this addiction outside into God's creation, and camp certainly can be part of that.
Yeah, it is powerful that way, and I'm a farm kid too. I was raised in the Northwest, worked on a farm in the summers in Washington. So I'm with you on that. I'm also an outdoorsman, love to be outside, and so I see the power of God's creation in my own life regularly. Yeah, kids do come to camp addicted to having something attached to them. Their thumb muscles are strong, the strongest muscles in their body for texting all the time. Most of our camps tell me that they still forbid technology devices, from iPads to iPods to phones, during the camp experience. So kids will turn those in. We have heard a funny story of a dad who sent 3 phones with his child to camp, because then one could be turned in kind of as the dummy phone when they ask for your phone. One could be used, and if you got caught, you'd have a backup. And so even parents sometimes will support kids in their addiction, or at least, they call them helicopter parents, mom and dad who want to hover over the kid and stay connected at all times. I understand that. I'm a parent myself, but they don't know just how very good it can be for a child to suddenly be disconnected to all those things and then hear the voice of God, perhaps for the first time.
Wonderful. All right, so where do people go to get more information about this?
Well, again, I suggest that anybody who wants more information could go to thepowerofcamp.com. Right. They can watch a video there of what it's a short video, about 3 minutes, kind of a promotional video for camp and just the great experience that it can be. They can find a camp for a child to go to, and whether that's nieces, nephews, or your own children, grandchildren, or neighborhood kids, you can help them get to a camp. And if you want to find information about sending someone else who can't afford to go to camp, that could go to click on the button, send a kid to camp at that spot.
Hey, thanks for what you do. Blessings on you and your organization. Greg, this is just wonderful. And best to you, my friend. Let's stay in touch and see how this season goes, okay?
That'll be great.
All right, God bless.
Thank you, Perry.
We'll see you next time on Focus Today.